Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for the statement and the advanced sight of it, and I also echo her sentiments towards Her Majesty and wish her well on this auspicious time in her life and thank her for her service. The Prime Minister has used this rather curiously named informal EU summit to press the EU-NATO members to fulfil their defence expenditure requirements. The last Labour government consistently spent over 2% on defence. The Tory government's cuts since 2010 have demoralised our armed forces, cut spending by 11% in the last Parliament, and reduced the size of the army from 82,000 to 77,000. As well as making these cuts, they have changed the way in which the 2% spending is actually calculated. So while the Prime Minister is lecturing other countries, can she tell the House why her government changed the accounting rules to include aspects of expenditure that were not previously included? The Defence Select Committee in 2015 noted the government is only meeting the 2% figure by including other areas such as pensions, which had not been included before, and goes on to say this redefinition of defence expenditure undermines to some extent the credibility of the government's assertion that the 2% figure represents an increase. Mr. Speaker, to add to this disarray, this weekend the Sunday Times newspaper uncovered a series of equipment failures, bungled procurement deals, including apparently ordering light tanks that are too big to fit in the aircraft that are supposed to be transporting them. This really does cast some doubt on the government's competence in this area, so perhaps it's not such a good idea to go lecturing other countries on defence spending and procurement. Labour has long been concerned about poor planning and short-sightedness by the MOD in long delays in delivering projects. It is worrying the extent to which the MOD appears to have lost control of some of its biggest equipment projects, and it'd be nice to know what action the Prime Minister is taking on this matter. Mr. Speaker, earlier today, the Prime Minister had a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Did she make it clear to him, as this House has often spoken of and she has herself, that there is continued opposition by the British government to the illegal settlements being built in occupied Palestinian territories? Mr. Speaker, Labour has been unequivocal that it is within this government's gift to guarantee the rights of EU citizens to remain in this country. There is no need to wait for negotiations to begin. The government could do it now. This is not a question about Brexit. It's a question about human rights, democracy and decency towards people who have lived and worked in this country. And many families here have children born here, and I think we must guarantee their rights. Many of those people have been left in limbo and are very deeply concerned and stressed. Did the Prime Minister discuss this issue with her European counterparts, and will she today provide them with the clarity and assurances that they both need and, I believe, deserve? We're clear, Mr. Speaker, that we accept the mandate of the British people to leave the European Union. But we will not accept this government turning this country into a bargain basement tax haven on the shores of Europe. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we welcome the additional £30 million the government has committed to the refugee crisis across Europe. Last week, at Prime Minister's question time, the Prime Minister said that the United Kingdom had settled 10,000 refugees from Syria. According to the House of Commons Library, we have resettled less than half that figure, 4,414. There is an ongoing and grave human tragedy that has resulted in over 5,000 people drowning in the Mediterranean last year and 254 already this year, and we're only at the beginning of February. We should also, I believe, Mr. Speaker, note the phenomenal commitment of the government and people of Greece to the huge number of refugees in their country and the difficulties they're having in supporting them. What conversations did she have with her Greek counterpart on this important matter? I also say to the Prime Minister that even post-Brexit, this is an issue that will affect every country in Europe. We have the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world that we've ever faced, and we will need to coordinate as a continent to address this issue with all the humanity and the resources that our collective values determine should be deployed towards this issue.